Welcome to the Yaoi Shelf. Pull up a chair and let's dive in. My name is Aisha, aka MommaLuvsManga, and I'm a mama who loves manga. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I just talk about manga and I get my life. So, I am here with my wonderful, wonderful co-host.
Hi. So my name is Amanda. My panelist and cosplayer name is AichiYume. I've been a fangirl for about as long as I've been alive. We're actually pushing about 20 years of anime fandom and about 15 years of a specifically boys love fandom. I'm a panelist, writer, and cosplayer who focuses on writing, representation, and media criticism. So I bring a lot of ability to critique these things from a more academic standpoint, as well as how to then become a better writer in a lot of these spaces, because I have been writing fanfic for a scary long amount of time. This is also a good place to mention, I'm a gender non-binary person, so if you ever hear me reference myself as male or using male nouns or pronouns, that's why. I'm not weird. I just use both she and he regularly. So I only preface it because I know every once in a while it'll throw off listeners. It's like, that biological female just said he.
Since we are giving pronouns, my pronouns, she and they, I guess. I mean,
Cool.
I don't really care. Like, I mean, no one has ever mistaken me for a he, though. And sometimes I wish that people would. Like, I've tried. I'm like, I could be a sexy boy, and people are like, no. Listen, I'm very excited about this because I feel like we complement each other. Like, I don't come at this from an academic standpoint. Amanda is super intelligent, super knowledgeable, and I'm so happy to be doing this podcast with you.
I'm just a nerd who went to college. Like, that's all that I am. Like,
But that's a big deal.
I found a way to make anime academic. My senior project was anime as cross-cultural communication. You just find ways to make what you care about academic, and I did that for 4 years, and then I got a piece of paper and a lot of student debt.
Well, I mean, minus the student debt, everything else is super cool. And I love seeing how you've managed to, like you said, use that for something that you love, and you've already taught me a lot about really specifically BL and yaoi, which is what this podcast is going to be focusing on. And I am very excited to dive into it because while I am not new to manga, I am newer to BL and yaoi. I think I've been reading yaoi maybe really just for the past few years.
Oh, wow.
Whereas I've been reading manga since 2006.
Before I go into my storied history with boys love, we should mention that this podcast is focusing on boys love and yaoi and shonen, which means that we're mostly going to be talking about adult topics. If you have any young
Not for
ones,
children.
Not for children. If you have any younglings present, or if you yourself are a youngling, we legally have to say please don't listen, unless you are of your legal adulting age, which for us in America is 18. If you are under that age, we look forward to having you in a couple of years as a listener. But until then, we ask that you exit the shelf, because unlike Borders, we will card you. So I actually started in the boys love space when I was way too young. Probably about 15, 16 years old. So decidedly too young. Started writing fan fiction around that time, and just really, really fell in love with it. So I've been doing this. I turn 30 soon, so about way too long is the answer. I've had time to watch sites rise and fall. I've written shipping manifestos. I've argued with people about ships and war. I've been in this for a minute. I have earned the senior breakfast at IHOP.
The senior breakfast at IHOP. Yes.
Do you know about the meetup that I want to have?
At IHOP?
So I want to have a Wea Boomer senior pancake breakfast.
I love that. I absolutely love that. That is so great.
For all of us older fans, please come on down to the Wea Boomer pancake breakfast.
Listen, I love pancakes and I'm old, so I will be there. You know, as a newer BL fan, it's been really interesting to me because so most of what I've gotten into most of what I've gotten into has been Fumiyoshi Naga titles.
Whomst we stand.
Yes, she is queen. But like the majority though of how do I say this? I guess because I'm newer to it, I've come in at a time where like Yaoi and BL, I feel like there's a recent like in the past few years there's been like this boom
Mm-hmm.
in like English translated BL and Yaoi that you could get legally, like going to the bookstore and getting it. Like it's always kind of been around in some form, but like now there's so much to choose from. So like back in the day when I first started reading manga, I remember seeing things like is it Loveless?
Oh
Is
my
that what it's
god.
called? Like
Yes.
that was the main one that I remember seeing, and I never picked it up because I read the premise and I was like,
You're
this is
not
some
missing
like
anything.
age gap, right? So I was like, I don't want to read. So that's a big reason why I never really got into it because I was just like, is it all like this? And there weren't really very many options for me to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't a scan reader. I didn't know that scans were a thing. So I'm not on my moral high horse. I just literally didn't know they were a thing.
Right.
So so for me, like what I saw at the bookstore, that's what I was gonna read, and so um, I wasn't about to read Loveless. So it wasn't until fairly recently when I started to see like, oh, there's so much more out there. Now, obviously, Fumi Yoshinaga's titles have been out for a while, but where I could get my books, they weren't available. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't recall seeing Fumi Yoshinaga in Walden Books or Borders that I can think of, at least not in the ones in my area. So it wasn't until, like I said, recently where I was able to actually feel comfortable diving into it because there were just so many more stories that had a lot less of the things that make me cringe.
Mm-hmm. You actually brought up
Yes.
something that I do think is important that we kind of
Oh,
cover,
yeah.
which is problematic elements and content
Oh,
warnings.
yes, 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 yes.
I come from it as a writer, which anything that ruins plot, I don't really like. Without going too deep into it, I have my own fair amount of trauma, and I've never asked for a trigger warning in existence, because that's, frankly, to me, irrational. You can't have little pop-up bubbles on life, and as someone with trauma, I never know what's going to trigger me, so I'm never going to
Right.
put that onus on a creator. I could listen to the same song in 2 different days and have 2 completely different reactions. That is not on the songwriter because I have emotional management issues.
Right.
But
Right.
since we are in this space that does cover some, let's be frank, not so savory element sometimes, we will be more cognizant of giving you guys warnings when it's appropriate. So, like, age gap stuff, will be more willing to signpost about that. Any dubious consent or no consent at all, we'll signpost about that, especially if we're recommending anything. We'll try to keep our recommendations a little bit more wholesome just because I understand that in this era, we have to be very considerate about feelings.
Yes.
I will temper my dislike of, I don't like anything that ruins plot.
Right. And that's fair. That's absolutely fair. For me, I am, like you said, I came into this, I guess, internet, manga fandom as an adult, and more recently, where it is a time when things are a lot more politically correct. People are a lot
Sure.
more people are being a lot more aware of other people, and I love that. And so I do have a tendency to try to kind of to stick within that and at least let people know, like, hey, there's something in here that might trigger you. I do try to avoid spoilers though.
Right.
And I completely feel you on like not wanting to spoil things. Like there have definitely been titles that I've read that like I'm glad I didn't know exactly what was going to happen because it made that emotional connection that much more.
Right.
So I mean, and like you said, you never know like how you're going to react to certain things.
I think that there's room for series that leave you a mess. Like Devilman Crybaby did that for me. Crybaby left me a mess. But, like, I'm glad that no one told me what was going to happen because I got to feel all those emotions in real time. I felt like I was getting hit by a train. Multiple trains. Just, oof. Like, that series was a lot and kind of gay, so it loops us back in.
Right.
It's actually very gay. But I would never have wanted, even with all of my trauma, I would never have wanted a trigger warning for that. Because I think what made that series so great was calling my best friend literally babbling, like incoherently, after a full existential meltdown, just muttering, "I hate you, this is your fault, I hate you." I did that on Skype for like 30 minutes after watching the end of Devilman Crybaby.
Oh my gosh.
And I would never have gotten that if he's like, "Oh, hey, trigger warning for like neon demon sex and stuff."
And that's the thing. It's like talking to you has actually made me, I'm not going to say like I've completely changed my view, but it has made me like have more of an appreciation for going into a story without knowing any of those things.
Right.
So I think that it is fair for us to like compromise and give content warnings very lightly and like loosely. So we're not going to be like, "Oh, hey, on page 5 in chapter whatever, this happens." It's just going to be like, "Hey, listen, dubious consent or lack of consent," but we're not going to be like, we're not going to say who or what, where, or why. I think that's a pretty good, compromise.
Yeah, and if it's gratuitous, because as we cover some of these older series, you are going to get those instances where it's just gratuitous, where it's not, and I don't even like using this phrasing, but it's not adding anything to the story. Well, I have no issue giving a trigger warning for those like 80s, 90s, and 2000s series that throw rape around like it's just a plot device.
Like it's candy. They're just passing it out like it's candy.
Like sexual assault, whatever. Here, take 5.
Right.
Like I have
you
no
get
issue.
Assault. You get assault.
Exactly. I have no issue giving a trigger warning for those because it's gratuitous and it's not framed well and it's bad. It's just lazy storytelling and bad writing at that point. But I do think as we get into some of these more, I don't like using this word either, but like complex series where you will inevitably get something that is air quotes problematic.
Right.
If it hinders the story, I'm sorry, I might not be as quick to give you a trigger warning.
Right.
And then you can direct all of your ire at me. I will be the Trojan horse for this if you're mad because you were triggered. And I don't say that to be dismissive because trust, I have been full triggered in a bunch of places. I don't say this to be dismissive. I say this as someone who's a survivor of trauma and lives with it every day and does, their very best. If you are upset at that, you can direct that right at me.
Actually, don't do that, though, because, listen, I'm a stick up for my friend, so...
So, most of y'all probably know this, but for those of you who don't, we're going to go over some vocabulary. Shonen ai literally means boys love. We've been throwing that word around a lot because I don't like saying yaoi all the time, because it's...
Yeah.
Mostly because that word got ruined for me because of cryptozoology. So cryptozoology, the study of monsters. There is a Bigfoot-type creature in Australia called the Yaoi.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, spelled Yowie.
Oh.
So I kind of have a hard time saying Yaoi nowadays because I'm just like, there's a weird boys love monster out in like the Australian outback.
The mental picture that I just got.
Like a giant manga just terrorizing campers.
There's a lot of like the monster BL that's been releasing lately.
Oof.
So that could be, somebody
Another
could write
episode.
that.
That could be another episode.
BL. It could. It really could.
Let us know if you want that to be an episode.
Yeah. Some monster BL.
So boys love, as we mentioned, is usually relationships between two men, sexual or not, usually sexual. I think we'll be focusing more on what is technically yaoi. The difference typically between shonen ai and yaoi actually comes down to ratings. Your shonen ai is typically a demographic between 14 to 16 and almost always geared towards women. Yaoi is almost always 18 plus, which means that there's usually very frank depictions of sex. We will probably discuss censorship at a later date because the way the manga companies have censored yaoi over the years has been comical. Let's be real.
It's hilarious.
It's like, I have no idea what these two naked men are doing in a bed. I guess they're waxing a surfboard.
Surfboard.
Right.
Surfboard.
Stop it.
I couldn't help it.
I walked into that, in all fairness.
You did.
I opened that door. So that's typically your difference. So your 16 plus, your shonen eyes, you're usually going to stop around like some kissing and heavy petting. That's usually like the infamous like cut to black, and then they wake up in bed the next day and it's like, oh, something happened here.
I wonder what.
And then your 18 pluses will usually show you the deed.
Yeah.
Usually, not all of them.
Usually, yeah. Yeah, to varying degrees. Yeah, usually.
Yeah, some are more subtle than others. Some are very explicit. It just depends. Like, there are some writers that really get into it, and others.
Those are my favorites.
Those are actually now some of my least favorite. Like, I'm
Interesting.
I'm here for substance that supports some porn.
Right. Whereas I'm typically like as long as the porn is good, the story can be mediocre at best. I mean, don't get me wrong.
much like a good uke, I need some foreplay. So I need a good story around.
Okay.
But also, I've been writing smut for years. I am a very harsh smut critic. Like, there was a line in a smut light novel that I just read that had me so mad of just how badly written it was that I actually, like, walked away from it for a little while. Should I divulge what the line was?
You should. I was just, yes.
So, it's, like, right at the middle of, like, the sexy scene, and the line is, and his eyes had dimmed with the fucking. It's like,
I wish that y'all could see my face right now, because what the fuck does that mean?
Because if you went to, like, eyes had gone lidded, that's fine, but, like, dimmed with the fucking.
Oh, so, like, heavy, his eyes got heavy?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's like what heavy. I'm guessing that's what they meant to say with that, but dimmed with the fucking sounds like you fucked, like, one of those, like, clappers to make it dim your light. It's like a clap on, clap off, but with your dick.
Yes!
And I don't support that.
My first thought was like, did he die?
The dick killed him? Oh god.
It's like, his eyes dimmed. Like, what were y'all doing?
Yeah, but like, that was a line that was so badly written that I was like, I can't. I have to leave. I have to go now.
That would have completely taken me out. That would have taken me out of the story. Yeah, and I would have been so upset. It
completely took me out of it. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, y'all were doing so well, and then eyes dimmed with the fucking. And I'm like, bye.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm just literally picturing just like their eyes just going dim, and they're just like, laying there, dead, just dead.
Like, it was good smut up until that point. And I'm like, I can't with you anymore.
It's like, oh, he died.
Yeah, that guy's unconscious. This is a crime now. Someone needs to call the SVU.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm like, I have to wipe my eyes.
Yes, like, I'm a very, very harsh smut critic. So I need some filigree around my men getting to it, examining rods.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I say that, but at the same time, I do appreciate a great story.
You better.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate a great story. But then there are some mangaka who I really actually wish they would just like make art books.
Fumio Shinobu.
So that I can just, well, I actually. Okay, I I love her stories though. She is a great storyteller. I was actually
Great
thinking
is the
about
word we're using?
uh okay, I'm blinded by my standing. Okay, okay, we will talk about her.
You know
and
what? By the end of this, she's gonna get her whole own fucking episode.
yeah, she is. She's gonna get her own episode. I was actually thinking of Scarlett Berico. She's someone who what I've read from her, and I've read, I think, two titles from her, Jackass and the Fourth Generation Head. And for me personally, those stories. Well, okay, Jackass actually had a really good story, but I just didn't like the ages. The other one, I wish that it had just been her drawing them getting it on because I was here for like her. I love how she depicts things, but I just haven't so far been super here for the stories.
Mm-hmm.
So she's someone that I'm like, could you just do an art book so that I can just like flip through and look at it?
I feel that way about Lily Hoshino.
I haven't read any of.
So Hoshino has done actually some shoujo, but I know her mostly from Boys Love stuff, and she just does like these great like wide-eyed doll characters, and they all look good, but some of her storytelling is a little bit like, that's a stretch, but okay.
Right. Yeah, and there are just some people, like, I appreciate their art, but the stories are a little bit like, ew. What were you thinking when you
Well,
when you wrote this?
If I had to go back and like read the stuff that mattered to me when I was younger, like I would shudder. Like looking back at like the yaoi that was formative to me, oof. That's a journey that we will go on, but not today.
Right. Oh, and I'm sure you have so many stories. I think that should be an episode where you just tell me stories about your
there's so
your
many.
time.
Like back in the day, like we passed around yaoi manga like it was cocaine. Like
Right.
we passed it around in school, like, you know, you throw it across the hall, you know, you slide it into your friend's backpack, you know, we're writing fan fiction in class. I still have every fan fiction I wrote because I wrote them on paper because I could hide them easier. I couldn't keep a file on my computer. My aunt would read that.
Right.
But she wouldn't look at a notebook because she assumed that was homework. So I have fan fiction going back to when I was 12.
Oh my gosh.
Handwritten meticulously and saved on a bookshelf.
I think that's so cool.
No, it's not. They will be burned upon my death.
No.
That will not be used against me after I die. You will put that shit in my coffin. You will crack open my lid like a Pepsi, and you will throw that shit in there.
I personally won't. I am going to, like, I'll, like, smuggle them out. You won't know. You'll be dead. Like, who's going to check me?
Okay, I do have executors of my will who will check you.
Oh, that's true.
So, yes, someone will see you smuggling 15 years worth of yaoi under your oversized shirt.
Right? I just had a picture.
Yeah.
I just envisioned myself, like...
Right, trying to, like,
run,
James Bond this shit. Someone will get you. You will be caught.
I'm just like, my little skinny arms just like
just trying to
pumping. I'm trying to run.
Just trying to run away through a cemetery. Ma'am.
Like, no. I will save the fan fiction.
Okay, fine. I will. It will not get buried with me. I'll put it in the cloud or something.
Okay, thank you.
You're
I appreciate
welcome. I'll
that.
put it in the cloud. I think that's a great segue into our top fives.
Yes. I think I would like for you to go first.
Do you want me to go through all of them, or do you want to go popcorn one and then one?
Ooh, I guess we could do that. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll go back and forth.
Okay, so this is in no particular order. We're talking about like the 5 that you would put these in a pentagram to summon me. Number 1, I have to give it to Gravitation. Maki Murakami. I modeled my male persona after Yuki Eri, the main male in this. Gravitation, it is hella problematic by today's standards. But the story of a young musician, Suichi Shindo, who falls in love with a romance writer, Yuki Eri. Eri has a past and a half.
Mm.
And it's, especially the manga is really dealing with Eri's trauma and his history. And Suichi is an afterthought, which I am fine with. Because I am all about that side cast. The anime is great because the music is phenomenal. It is a music series, so that soundtrack is for the most part banging if you like late 90s, early 2000s aesthetics.
Yes.
Yes. So number one has to be Gravitation for me, hands down.
Okay. Which I have read the first volume, because you gave it to me, right?
I did.
Yeah. So I have read the first volume and I enjoyed it. I just haven't finished collecting it because
It's old.
It's old, and I'm just like, do I really, do I want to go on this search? But
the answer is yes.
I'm like, okay, I will eventually. So I guess, and again, this is in no particular order as far as like favorites, but I think probably the one that really just combines so many things that I love. And that would be What Did You Eat Yesterday by Fumi Yoshinaga. It's not just a BL. It's not just a story about these two men. It's also a foodie manga, and I love foodie manga so much. So I get the food, I get the relationship. I love that they are an established couple. They're also older, so it's like grown people, which I also love. And it's slice of life. So it's like all of these things that I love in one manga. So, what is your, I guess, number 2?
So, you mentioned Foodie and Fumi Yoshinaga because it's Antique Bakery.
Yes. I knew. Yes. And I purposely did not pick that one because I knew you picked it. And I was like, okay, I want to have like
but
a
real
diverse
talk, I
list,
think we share this one.
Yes, it is. It is so great.
It's as close to perfect as I think we can get.
It is so. I really want to. I want to sit down and reread it. Like it's one of those that you can just read over and over again. Anyways,
can I tell you something really, really like sappy and romantic about me?
Yes.
If I ever get married, I want my first dance with my husband to be Life Goes On side D.
Y'all can't see my face. Aww.
Like I want like that to be like my first dance with my like imaginary husband. He gets no say in this. He gets no say in this. This is already decided. It was decided with my wedding colors and I was like 17 years old.
Right.
Like the wedding's already planned. I just need the dude. And the money. But like
yeah, that
the wedding's been planned, but like Antique Bakery means so much to me. Essentially a very, very stressed out guy opens up a Western style cake shop as a front to confront someone who hurt him. He makes a honey trap out of a cake shop. Like, this isn't even a spoiler because it's that weird.
Who does that? He does.
Tachibana.
Okay, anyway.
Tachibana does it. And with this, you meet a very, very fascinating cast of characters. It's a small cast, but everyone is important and everyone pulls their weight. I love it. I think it works best as an anime because Fumi Yoshinaga does have a little bit of a same face problem.
She does. Yeah, that's yeah.
And especially like, if you've read a lot of her work, these guys all like that's Tachibana with longer hair.
They all look the same. I've read all of her works in English so far. Like I've read all of them that have been released in English and the same face. Same face. Like, wow.
I think it works phenomenally as an anime because they do have very, very distinct personalities and being able to like Antique Bakery has some fantastic casting as an anime. Basically, however you imagine these characters, I guarantee you the voice actors do it. Including my all-time favorite Japanese voice actor, Kazuhiko Inoue, who does an amazing job in this role. Antique Bakery is like up there for me. I love it. It's phenomenal. And in ye olden times, the manga used to have a scratch and sniff cover of the cake that was being featured. Because it is still a show about a cake shop. And there used to be recipes. And I have 3 out of 4 volumes of the series. I'm missing the last one. And they still have the scratch and sniff cakes. And some of them still smell like cake.
yes. Mine, because I have all of them,
Of course you
and
do.
when I realized that they were, because I didn't, when I bought them, I didn't realize that they were gonna have the scratch and sniff, and so I was super excited. Now, I think only one of mine still works though, but I was just like, oh my gosh, scratch and sniff, and it took me back to like the, what was it, like the 90s when
Yeah.
scratch and sniff was like really
Like, it's
a
the
thing.
weirdest and most random thing that you can add to a manga, but I love it so
Yeah.
much. And the
Oh, it's
anime
so
will
great.
usually try to, like, give you the recipe of what they're making.
Mhm.
So, like,
Mhm.
it's always cool when you can, like, hey, I made the thing that Ono made, but not as good because I'm
Yeah.
not a baker.
I'm not talented like that at all. I would
Like,
no.
I can sometimes make a pastry cream in the microwave,
Mhm.
but I'm not gonna hand whip a meringue, you sadist.
Whatever. You absolutely. I've seen your pictures. You bake.
I do bake. I do bake, but that means I'll have to reverse our roles.
True. Hmm. I don't know if I like that.
I don't know if I like that either. A Tachibana with a sweet tooth sounds crazy.
Yeah. Hmm.
I love cake, and that's why I love Antique Bakery. It's a shockingly heartfelt story.
It is.
You would think that it would be like really flighty and dumb. Again, for modern audiences, probably has some problematic elements.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep. Mm.
there's not the best conversations about some topics.
Right.
So if you're
Yeah.
sensitive to that, I
Yeah.
think it's all framed very well, and framing is a word I use a lot. It's just how a thing is viewed within a work. So, like,
Right.
nothing that is bad is framed or looks good. If it's bad, it's bad.
Mhm.
I think the only thing that is still sketchy with the framing is one particular Frenchman.
Oh, yeah. I
But
hate
I love him.
him. And that's where we stand on
There's two
that.
kinds of people. It's like, I hate him, I love him.
I love how we said it at the same time
Yes.
too. Like,
So
no,
I think that's the only part where the framing is not ideal.
right.
But you'll have some time to get into that, and it's a pretty brief interlude in comparison to the rest of the work. If that's the
Right.
thing that stops you, I would go ahead and say just press on.
Yeah, I mean it's
Like, you can
yeah.
ignore the Frenchman and it not really play a major part in the
Right.
work as a whole. I think that's like
I agree.
episode 10 in the anime. So just skip episode 10. There you go.
Well, so oh, what would my second one be? What do I? It's so hard because I love all of these, and obviously, like again, these are not in any specific order. I'm gonna go ahead and mention another Fumi Yoshinaga title. Uh,
You said this wasn't going to be a Fumi Yoshinaga episode.
I know. Yes, lies. So this one is called Ichigenme, The First Class is Civil Law. It's a 2 volume series, and it follows these two guys who are in law school. They're in university, um, and without I don't without getting too deep into it, one is gay, or one is questioning, one is definitely gay,
The
and
Fumi
they come
Yoshinaga
together.
standard.
Yes, yes, and so they end up meeting. And I won't get it too much into it because it'll take me forever because I'm terrible at giving synopsis. But they end up meeting and forming a friendship, and then over time that friendship, of course, becomes more, and it's just a really fun journey, like watching the two of them grow and blossom. And I was, when I read this, I was so shocked at how much I loved it, and how well certain things were handled. And excuse me, my nose is like so stuffy. But certain issues were handled extremely well. I loved the side characters. I had so much fun reading this, and because it's 2 volumes, it's super easy to get into and read. It is an older title though, so it's not in print. But oh my gosh, I love this. So, what is your second?
Third.
Third. Yes. Oh.
My third definitely has to be Maiden Rose, done by Fusanosuke Inariya. It's military. It's set during what is essentially a World War II. Between a they use like made up words for lands, but essentially a German guy and a Japanese guy.
Okay. Okay.
They don't say that it's either of those lands, but the main Seme's name is Klaus von Wolfstadt.
Oh yeah. That.
And your Uke's name is Taki Ryzen. So
Okay. Yeah.
not Asia and not Germany. Sure.
Right. Sure.
This one's angsty and explicit and problematic.
Mm-hmm,
Most of mine are going to be problematic. I'm angsty. But it has some genuine storytelling that like made my heart race. I think the designs are great. I think if you can get past some of the problematic elements, I think the storytelling and the intrigue around it being like a war series is good because it deals a lot with like racism and what it means to be in a country or what it means to have loyalty. It actually is pretty accurate with its military stuff. There's a lot of tanks. So if you like tanks, there's a lot of that. And it's actually like she does a lot, the mangaka did a lot of research into making sure that like, hey, this is an actual thing. There is an anime OVA of it that I do not think is available legally, so I won't say it too loudly. I will say watching it as an anime was weird because those problematic elements, there's something different about cognitively reading no and hearing no.
Right. It's probably a little bit more.
Yeah, it made some of those problematic elements a little bit too real for me. So if you don't like, frankly, no consent, it's framed beautifully. You are not expected to empathize with anyone who's doing anything terrible. The bad guy is the bad guy. You are not meant to think that this is good, romantic, or beautiful. But there was just something that was weirdly cognitively dissonant. But I mean, I think the manga is still really, really good. It does definitely have some elements that don't age well. But I like it. I like all of her character designs. Also, Klaus as a character is so jacked that as a chibi, he still has a six-pack.
That actually cracks me up.
Like, how fucking jacked are you as a character that as a chibi, you're still ripped? That's insane to me.
You're gonna have to send me a picture of that later. That's hilarious. I would love to see it.
What's your third? Give me that third.
So my third is actually a fairly recent one. I think it's still ongoing. And that is Ten Dance by I never can pronounce their name. Inoue Sato, I think is how you pronounce it. This is a ballroom BL, or yeah, I would say BL because
do they fuck?
It's the 16 plus rating. So it's very much like, I mean, it's very there's a lot of implied things. You know, it's very suggestive is the word I'm looking for. It's hot. Like it's a slow burn.
Okay.
So yeah, it's definitely a slow burn, and I'm not caught up with it. But oh my gosh, if you are a fan of dance, which I am, I love watching people dance. I think dance is so sexy and sensual, and I love when I can watch people dance. And when you get two sexy men who can move, oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. My body is ready. It's so great. And I also, one thing I do love about this as well is that one of the characters, although he is Japanese, he was basically I think he was raised in like either Cuba or the Dominican Republic. One of those. And that's I think Cuba. And that's kind of where he picked up his love for, I think he does the tango. And I mean, I could be misremembering these things, but in any case, you do get to see some things outside of Japan, and the characters both have very interesting uh, full backgrounds. You know, they're not just people that have only lived all of their lives in Japan. Like they've traveled with their, craft, and it's so great. They're so talented, and also their female part, because it's ballroom, and ballroom is very heteronormative, very binary, and so they of course have female partners that they dance with professionally, and I love their partners as well. I ship them, but unfortunately, one of them is married to a man. So I was just like, well, I guess I can't ship these ladies, but
It's never
yeah,
stopped anyone.
right. I mean, I
What are you
still ship
talking
them,
about? What?
but right, I'm like, I mean, yeah, I'm still gonna do it. But yeah, it's just a really fun. Um, it's just a really fun series where you could learn a lot about ballroom dancing, like the traditional waltz and stuff like that, and then the tango, and like these two guys who have very different disciplines, getting together and learning from each other, and just being very like flirtatious. And I'm just like, oh, y'all, hurry up and fuck already, 'cause I need to see it. So
Damn.
that's my number three.
Good lord. I fully support this.
We said this isn't for kids, so
We did. Number 4 for me, if you follow me on Twitter, I literally never shut up about this, which is Twittering Birds Never Fly, by Ko Yoneda. I've literally not shut up about the series. If you follow me, you know it's a favorite of mine. It's Yakuza, it's angsty, it's so good, and you want to talk about, like, good anatomy and good art with that stuff, Yoneda Senpai is phenomenal.
I have the first three in English, but I actually have I ordered volumes 4 through 6 in Spanish. I haven't started reading though, so I'm waiting until I can just like sit down and start reading those, and I will be like calling you.
I look
Like, oh
forward
my
to
gosh,
that. I'm
like
super excited for that.
yeah.
It's there are some not great elements about it, but
I've been told. I'm prepared. I yeah.
but framing is key, and I don't think that you're ever meant to empathize with a bad thing. I will. So here's my
Right.
thing as a writer. I'm okay with bad things in media and writing them. Just don't make me feel bad for the person doing the bad thing.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Absolutely.
that's one of my most important things. Like I love villains because they're unrepentant. So I'm
Right.
completely fine with monstrous acts. Do not make me feel bad for the monster. And I
Right.
think Twittering Birds Never Fly is a great example of watching someone slowly self-destruct and just
Ooh.
watching it happen. And you
I'm
can't
just.
stop it.
I really want to read it.
It's like watching a building get demolished in slow motion. It's beautiful.
So I guess my fourth one, Liquor and Cigarettes by Ranmaru
Yes!
Zaria. Like, I love this so much. It's a one shot. Theo and Camilo have been friends for a long time. And Camilo is like, I want you. And Theo is like, sure, okay, whatever. I don't know about that. But, over time, they get into situations and things start happening. And
And you fall on a dick, I
Camilo,
guess.
yes, just fell right on it. But I just loved that Camilo was very much like, hey, like, if you're curious and you're into it, like, I'm into doing this with you, but I also want to make sure that you are comfortable but also, if you let me, just so you know, like, it's going down. And so they have an arrangement, and I like it. Okay, like,
You should read Coyote next.
I bought it. I have it on my shelves. Like, I'm gonna start reading that one. I fell in love with this, and it made me want to read more of her work.
She does some great anatomy work.
Oh my, oh my gosh! Like, y'all can't see me.
She's
flipping
refreshing
through.
her memories. She
So
does some good
good.
anatomy. I've read a lot of her
Yes.
work before. She does some good anatomy.
Whew, Camilo is so fine.
So, for my last one, Lies Are a Gentleman's Manners by Marta Matsuo.
Oh.
We talked about this one. This one is hella messy. It's about Jonathan, who is a student and his professor, who is a hot older man. But Jonathan's a college student.
Right.
So it's an age gap, but it's like a consenting age gap.
Right.
They are a messy couple. Because his professor is, of course, married.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
So
okay.
they a messy couple.
I need to buy that one.
It's so good. And again, I mean, I think there's less problematic stuff in here because everyone's of age and everyone knows what they're getting into. But there's definitely some, like, interesting dynamics and discussions about, like, power and who has it. There's also an extended scene with a bunch of rich guys playing polo, and it's a giant sex metaphor.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I really like it. I think you'll like it. You like the occasional messy relationship.
Yeah, I love mess. I'm like Marie Kondo. I like mess.
Yeah, there's infidelity. There's lying to your wife.
But you would think that I wouldn't like that stuff, but for some reason,
but it's fiction.
I'm here for it.
It's fiction.
It's so different from my real life.
Right, like we read this stuff to escape. Like, if I wanted reality, I would read boring Missionary with the Lights Off. Like, we read this stuff to escape. Like, so it's going to be fantastical and it's going to be scandalous. Like,
right.
So what's your last one?
So my last one is actually a very sweet one, and it is Our Dining Table. This is by Mita Odi. This came out in 2019. It is so cute. It's definitely one of the most wholesome BL that I own. It might even be the only wholesome one that I own, because even What Did You Eat Yesterday isn't fully wholesome. Yeah, so Our Dining Table it centers around a young man who has some trauma. I mean, there's always, everybody in BL has some sort of trauma that they're dealing with. But he can't eat with other people. So he always eats alone. But then one day he, by chance, ends up meeting this guy and his little brother, and they end up forming a friendship. And eventually the two men form a relationship. And there's this sort of like family aspect of it that I love. So like the little brother is almost like a child. Like, he is a child. He's almost like a stand-in for if they were to have a child together. Aww. In a way. And it's so sweet, so cute. It's not about the physical, it's about the emotional. So if you are someone who isn't really keen on like explicit, I definitely recommend this one.
We decided to do this because I think there's no better introduction to us as hosts than to kind of go over, this series that if you lay them out like a Captain Planet, you could use that to summon either of us. Because, I can talk about the smut fic that I wrote between Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy when I was in high school.
Oh, I would love to read it.
I can probably dig it up for you. There's a lot of angst. We can talk about our histories ad nauseum, but I think that a great way to understand who we are is by digging into our yaoi shelves. I think that's a great way to get to know us.
I agree with that, because it definitely shows what our baseline is, and like what our interests are, what we are okay with, you know what I mean? Excuse me, my nose is just like not letting me be great right now, so I apologize to our listeners. But you could see from my picks that I do like a little spice, but I also like some sweet in there as well. I verse.
You can definitely tell from my picks that I like strong storytelling, especially if it's angsty and or messy.
Right. Yes.
The vanilla stuff doesn't do it for me anymore.
You're like, I need problems and angst and trauma.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's so weird because, like, that stuff is just so boring to me nowadays. Because, like,
I can see that.
Because I mean, I have some friends that have, like, similar backgrounds, and, like, they do a lot of slice of life to, like, escape, because, like, their lives are so hectic that, like, it's nice to just watch, like, people in a room do nothing. And I'm the opposite. I've had so much shit that, like, I need that reflected. Because just people sitting in a room doing nothing usually doesn't do it for me. It's like... Like, there's a few slice of life series that I like a lot. And, like, technically a series that could have gotten thrown into here was Access Powers Italia. But that's not a true boys' love. There's some heterosexual pairings in it. Just fangirls made it gay. But, like, that's about as, like, boring slice of life as I get. Like, pretty much, like, a typical Fumi Yoshinaga, when it comes to especially the boys' love space, is about, like, as boring slice of life as I get. And Fumi Yoshinaga is consistently darker than you'd expect.
Yeah.
Like, she'll usually throw a curveball, like, right at the end. Like, oh, okay, that's where we're going. Cool.
Some of her anthologies, left me like, I was like, this is not what I was expecting.
Yeah, this is not what I signed up for. And I think it also reflects that, like, yeah, I grew up with reading a lot more of these problematic series. So my tolerance for this is probably a lot higher. Because this was all that we had. Like, I mean, one of the series that I read first when I was in high school was Jazz. And Jazz is very problematic. I mean, it's good, but it's problematic. Like, and when that's your base, when that's your formation... You know, you start off with a house that's tilting to one side into Deviant Town.
So I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. I'm excited for our future conversations.
I am too.
Speaking of, do we have anything that we missed that we want to mention? I think
we covered everything.
I think we have.
I think we covered it all.
I'm proud of us. And we managed to do it in just a little under 2 hours.
Under 2 hours of actual recording, over 2 hours of warm-ups and conversations that will never be released to the public.
Ever. Y'all don't need to hear that.
But I had a great time.
Yes, I did too. I knew that we were going to have a great time. So what we want to know is, did y'all listeners have a great time? So feel free to let us know, because TBH, if y'all didn't have a great time, we can just have conversations amongst each other.
Yeah, we'll take this offline any day.
Yeah, so... I
mean, we love y'all, but...
Right. But if y'all want to continue to hear us get together and talk about things, let us know, and we will keep this going. Yeah, we have an outline. We have episode ideas.
We do.
But it's just like, if y'all aren't feeling this, we will just talk amongst each other in real life. So.
Yes, we will.
So, yeah, I guess we are at the end of this episode.
We are.
So, I guess, Amanda, go ahead and like let everyone know again where they can find you, and we'll have information listed.
Sure.
As well.
You can find me on Twitter at AichiYume, spelled exactly the way you think it would be spelled, because I am a weeb, and over on my blog at Amanda Actually.
And as for me, you can see me. Well, yeah, you can see me. On YouTube. Mama Loves Manga on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. And also, you can head over to my website, MommaLuvsManga.com, and I have like links there to my YouTube and all that stuff as well, if it's easier for you to just go there. So, wait, do I have anywhere else? Nope.
I think you covered it.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks for listening, guys. We had a great time. See you all next time, and we're going to talk about the history of boys' love and publications in the United States.
Bye.